Hey everyone, this is my pool plan video in DFFOO Global featuring the upcoming arc where Jegran will be featured as a synergy unit. You can refer to the cropped infographic on the left hand side of the slide, which was derived from Jakematt's global forecast. I'll also be including a link in the video description to the full global forecast as well. So these events will be where Jegran will be synergy and will include the Act 3 Chapter 5.1 Mission Dungeon with release of SAS LD, as well as Act 3 Chapter 5.2 with Friends LD. As always, before heading straight into the banners, a little bit about the purpose of this video. The whole idea is really just to share the thought process into how I come to certain decisions on whether or not to pull or skip for certain characters and banners. Obviously, these decisions are very biased towards my playstyle and preferences and may not even be the best approach to the game. In fact, I don't even think that there is one best approach to playing the game, given that there's actually many alternative team comps that work across many of the end game stages. The whole idea is to share the actual thought process into how I come into certain decisions and to have an active discussion on this as well as in the community, because I feel that this is a great way to approach the game, which is as a community together. Just to recap the amount of resources I spent in the previous arc, which was during Caius's synergy arc where his LD and BT were featured. I think this is also a good thing to share, because obviously the amount of resources do factor heavily into my decision on whether or not to pull. So during Caius's arc, I spent primarily tickets because I actually saved up and I was hitting the 999 ticket cap and had a few extra 100 tickets in the inbox. I started off with Caius's LD banner and I actually had to spend 570 tickets just to score his LD. Luckily, it wasn't all bad because I did actually score his burst weapon along the way, so I really see that as a win. I skipped Golbez's banner because I already had Golbez's gear and frankly I wasn't really interested in building Golbez anyway. I got pretty lucky on Kane's banner. I managed to snag his LD just with 20 tickets, so I call that a very huge win. I was actually hoping to get Barrett's LD along the way, but seeing that I scored Kane's LD, I just decided to give Barrett a skip. Luckily the devs also introduced Lena, but I had to actually spend 590 tickets just to score Lena's LD, which was quite a hefty investment. So after this, I am down to just a few hundred tickets after I cleared my inbox stash, and I was actually planning to skip Ida's LD when her banner came around, but since they gave a free multi-pull, I was extremely lucky and I actually snagged her LD on the free multi. So altogether I spent more than 1,000 tickets. I'm down to I think roughly about 300 tickets at this point of the game. I still have Shiva boards unfarmed, so I could potentially get a few hundred more tickets that way. But in Jegran's arc, I'm looking to actually build up my ticket stash again, so I will be probably be using gems on some of the banners here. Alright, so starting off with Jegran's arc in Act 3 Chapter 5.1, there's going to be two banners here. The first featuring the debut of Jegran all the way up to his LD and BT weapon, and the second banner features a rerun of Kuja LD BT, and Kuja will be getting a rework to boost up his damage to be more on par with the current meta as well. Now, I normally will always pull for the featured character at least up to their LD weapon, because they are going to be synergy for the next few events and I could at least be using them in the Chaos Challenge quests, so they actually fulfill one of the 3 synergy characters required for Chaos Challenges, and I think that's usually enough value to justify pulling at least only up to their LD weapons. This time, however, I'm actually planning to skip Jegran altogether. There's a few reasons for that. Firstly, I had a look at the events coming up where Jegran will be synergy, and I feel that this time around, given that there's only 3 events, unless GL changes things up, I could probably bypass all the Chaos Challenge quests just with the other synergy units featured in those banners, because I have most of them built up already. So in a way, I don't really need Jegran for the Chaos Challenge quests. Secondly, I also have at this point quite a lot of DPS characters built in my roster, to a point where I don't really see a need to pull for Jegran. I got very lucky and I actually got Shadow and Ida LD for free, and those two are also DPS characters. Thirdly, due to foresight, we also know that Machina is actually the next arc after Jegran, and I'm actually pretty hyped. I always liked Machina as a unit, and I'm very interested in actually building Machina as my next green BT character. I already have all his gear and he's at 3-3, just of course minus his BT, and if I don't get Machina BT, I may even just use BT tokens for him. So if I'm going to use Machina around that time, I don't think I'll even be using Jegran pretty much anymore after this synergy event anyway. So mainly for those reasons, I think I'll actually be giving Jegran a skip altogether. Next banner up is the mission dungeon featuring the release of SARS LD, and I believe SARS will also be getting a rework here. For those not aware, SARS is actually an offensive oriented support unit. He actually has a pretty high boost to attack, I believe actually the highest in the game, and he also boosts others offensive stats such as critical hits, max brave, and with his LD he will now also be providing boosts to both brave and HP damage up to the entire party. To me, this banner is also a bonus because I'm actually also still missing Palom's LD, so there's actually 2 LDs that I could potentially snag here. For that reason also, I'll be aiming to use gems on this banner, well, partly because my ticket stash is low, but I'm hoping to just quickly score SARS LD that way. I hope I'll be able to score Palom's LD on the way, but if I snag SARS LD early, I'll actually also be skipping Palom. So to me, I see Palom here as a bonus if I can get it on the way, but if not, then I'll just stop pulling and save my resources for the next banner. Alright, the third and final event on Jegran's arc will be Act 3 Chapter 5.2, this time featuring the release of Fran's LD, as well as a rerun of Mok from Final Fantasy VI LD weapon. I'm pretty excited for Fran's LD weapon, mainly because of its utility as an LD call. Now that may sound as a disservice, but for those playing this game for some time now, by now most people will see the immense value that LD calls can actually bring to the fight, especially in the Lufenia Plus stages where you really need lots of utility, either to pierce through the boss's defenses or to handle the orb mechanics, and Fran's LD call is pretty stacked. It provides a lot of debuffs all packaged into one frame debuff that can go up to 10 stacks, and if it reaches 10 stacks, the unit will actually get debuffed across several key stats such as defense, attack, speed down, magic attack down, and very valuable as well, a 10% boost to brave and HP damage done to the enemy debuffed. The defense down is actually pretty decent as well. It's a 40% defense down. So considering that the LD call provides a 40% defense down, 10% brave damage up, and 10% HP damage up, I think it's actually pretty decent to be used as a damage increasing debuff LD call. And especially for those people who've missed out on Kurasame and or Jack call, Fran's LD call will be fantastic to fit in your roster as a call ability. So on this part of the video, I'll be giving my opinion on these 4 characters, Fran, SARS, Jegran, and Kuja, where they have their LDBTs newly released. Well, Kuja really isn't new, but he'll be getting his BT plus, his LD boards, and his C level 80, so I think that's a lot and enough to warrant including him in the discussion. And really emphasis on the word opinion, because I'm fairly sure that there'll be many people disagreeing here or having their own ideas on how they will rate these characters. The whole idea here is that obviously it's going to be very difficult to be pulling on every single banner, And if you have limited resources, this is how I will actually prioritize the 4 units this time around. So first of all, in good value, I actually placed Friend here, and it is quite a dilemma. I'm actually thinking this arc doesn't have any characters fitting into the good value bucket, but for argument's sake, I think given the longevity of certain core abilities we've had in the past, particularly Kurasame or Jack as a good examples, I've actually used Kurasame in practically every fight that isn't absorbing ice or immune to the debuff. I think Friend LD Call gives a lot of utility here, and I can foresee at least myself using this LD Call quite a lot from here on in, and especially if you are missing LD Calls that can debuff defense or HP damage up, I think Friend is an excellent pickup. Now Sas was actually another dilemma that I was having. I was actually thinking that he's actually probably more fitting to be inside the good value category rather than Friend. He does have a lot going for him, and having a strong offensive support really goes a long way, especially since Lufenia Plus stages tend to have very beefy defenses. Depending on your circumstances, it may actually make sense to prioritize Sas over Friend. So if you're not too fast about the LD Call abilities and you're really in need of someone who can provide more support to the entire party as one of the 3 party characters, then I think Sas is actually a better pickup than Friend. For myself though, I really am pretty hyped for having another great LD Call ability, so for that reason I put Friend ahead of Sas, but really this is probably more a matter of what fits your roster better. Now as far as Jegran and Kuja goes, I think they are quite a bit below Friend and Sas in terms of desirability. The main reason for that is that if you've been playing, even if you're fairly new, you probably would have picked up quite a few DPS characters along the way. And looking at the forecast, we actually have more DPS characters coming up who will probably serve you better beyond Jegran and Kuja. Doesn't mean that they're bad, it just means that I don't really see a lot of situations where you actually need to bring in either or both of them, and that's why I sort of rate them lower than Friend and Sas. I put Jegran under the role fulfillment bucket, meaning that if you really need a strong DPS, you can probably get by with him. Keeping in mind though that you really do need to fully invest in his gear and probably green him to get the most out of him, which is really daunting considering that he's a new character and you have to sink in quite a bit of resources to get all his gear and fully max limit break him. But if you are willing to do that, he probably won't let you down. And if you really feel that you're lacking in DPS characters, then sure, he's a great role fulfillment as a DPS character. Kuja on the other hand, I think is really a consolation prize at this point. He does very well as the AoE magic DPS character, and with his rework, his DPS is actually much better now. His Ring Holy does 80% splash, and his Ultima Plus will actually deal 100% AoE damage rather than split damage as he did before. So overall he hits fairly hard, and he can also enchant and imperil the Holy Element, which is I think a plus for him. But the main reason why I put him here is, for me at least, I have Twins Green, and if I need to bring in an AoE magic DPS, I think Twins will probably out damage Kuja overall. So I don't see a lot going for Kuja, and again, at this point there's really quite a lot of DPS characters that can probably do a better job than him. So in closing, this is a pretty short arc, being that there's 3 events here. I'll be skipping both Jegran and Kuja on their banners. Well, I actually already have Kuja at 3-3 with his LD and BT, but I won't be investing in his BT+. I'm aiming to be using gems for Sas LD, hoping to score his LD and score Palom's LD on the way. As for Friend, because I already have Mog fully built, I'll just mainly be using tickets, but I hopefully won't have to spend too many because I am pretty low on my ticket stash. I may revisit Jegran banner if I snag his PT on one of the other banners, but that's a very big maybe. I really don't have a lot of interest in Jegran as a character. So that's the end of this pool plan video. As always, if you like the content, do leave a like, comment or subscribe. It really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!